بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so everybody can hear me. I'm sorry. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu rasulullah. Malik Shaw, tonight we have two special guests for our Marriage is Half Your Deen, but what is the other half program? Inshallah. So tonight we'll have a lot of wisdom, and inshallah we'll learn a lot about marriage at the different phases of marriage. So we're going to talk about like premarital counseling while you're in the marriage counseling and post-marital counseling, which is something I'm really interested in because I've never heard, until speaking to Imam Nadim, I've never heard of post-marital counseling, but I understand that is something that it is a necessity, inshallah. So we're really looking forward to this. But before we begin, and I would be remiss if I didn't, my internet is having some issues, so I wanted to tell Dr. Aneesah Imam Nadim, if something happens, just keep going, inshallah. So tonight I'll introduce our guests. I'll start with Dr. Aneesah. Dr. Aneesah Nadir is a retired Arizona State University social work professor where she taught for 17 years. She's also enjoyed a fulfilling career as a social worker for over 40 years and continues to mentor social work students. Dr. Nadir has also taught at Ottawa University, Gateway, and Mesa Community Colleges. As the owner of Dr. Aneesah Nadir Associates LLC, she provides diversity and inclusion education and training, program development, and relationship education programs. She's also combined her interest in the law and her passion for prevention to provide workshops emphasizing the importance of preventative legal access. This past May, Dr. Aneesah was recognized as the 2021 Businesswoman of the Year by the Tempe, Arizona Chamber of Commerce for her social entrepreneurship endeavors and work with small businesses in the community. Dr. Nadir serves as the president and is a co-founder of the Islamic Social Services Association, USA, ISA, a national nonprofit headquartered in Arizona, which provides mental health education and advocacy. Imam Nadim. So that's our sister, Dr. Aneesah Nadir. Alhamdulillah, thank you for joining us tonight. Inshallah, we look forward to kind of tapping into some of your expertise as stated. Imam Nadim Ali is originally from Chester, Pennsylvania, and has resided in Atlanta, Georgia since 1979. So Imam Nadim, you've seen a lot of growth happen in Atlanta. He reverted to Islam in 1978 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, under the auspices of the Dar al-Islam movement, and is currently part of the Al-Ummah. He's the Imam of the Community Masjid of Atlanta and the former convener for the Metro Atlanta Majlis al-Shura and founding member of MANA. Imam Nadim works as a licensed professional and master addiction counselor and serves Muslims and the general community, offering counseling services consisting of premarital, marital, and individual counseling. He is a therapist and consultant in stress management, which is something we all could use some advice in, Imam Nadim, especially in this current climate. Violence prevention and Tai Chi, and has been educating communities about the dangers of addiction, counseling patients on relapse prevention, and how to make healthier life choices. He also uses alternative methods such as Tai Chi, ancient slow motion exercise, as intervention treatment for addiction, stress reduction, and anger management. He has the unique ability to incorporate spiritual teachings, community activism, and holistic approaches to deep-seated problems in the community. The unique combination has made him a bedrock in the communities on which thousands have relied on for decades. He's authored numerous articles on counseling and family matters, and he's also the co-founder of the spoken word a cappella group, Dawa Ensemble. He obtained a bachelor's degree in communications from Shippensburg State University, a master's degree in counseling psychology from the Georgia School of Professional Psychology, and is a licensed professional counselor and a master of addiction counselor. Alhamdulillah, shukrulillah, we have both of y'all's expertise with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, so tonight we want to talk about a couple things. But I wanted to start off with a question of what would you say is the state of marriage in the community based on what you are seeing every day on the ground? Dr. Nadir, we'll start with you.
Well, the state of marriage in our society overall, we know that 1 out of 2 people will end in divorce. And then within the Muslim community, we have have had research that indicates 1 out of 3. And I don't know, when I look at some of the anecdotal evidence, just kind of my experience in talking to people, the numbers are growing even within the Muslim community. And even when people don't get divorced, they're not happy. There's like, I don't have numbers because I don't have the research to back it up, but my sense is like half of those people who stay together still aren't really happy, and they don't really have the knowledge and skills to build the kinds of relationships that Allah tells us in Quran. That compassion, that love, that tranquility within marriage.
Yes.
It concerns me, and that's part of why I'm doing what I do.
Alhamdulillah, and that's why we're here tonight. Got to get those blissful marriages, inshallah. Imam Nadim, what are you seeing on the ground is the state of marriage?
Well, the people that come to me for the most part who are married, they usually have problems. And so the people who don't come to me, most 9 times out of 10, they may not have problems. And so the problems that I'm seeing is people get married, Muslims, for instance, they get married, but how do we stay married? And, I always tell people that just because you put a kufi or a khimar on, it doesn't erase the dysfunctionality that you may have experienced growing up. I always tell people I'm a project kid. I'm raised in the Fairground Projects in Chester, Pennsylvania. I learned a lot of what not to do in a relationship. And so a lot of times as Muslims, specifically we're a community in transition, we're a revert community in this part of the world. And so we bring in a lot of behaviors and just paint over with a little thin veil of Islam. And so that's like painting over rotten wood. And so we have to basically have internal change. We have to allow ourselves to become Muslims intrinsically. And so it will show extrinsically later on, because that's one of the problems is that we continue to hold on to a lot of behaviors that are inconsistent with Islam and try to, what we used to call it Islam.
Well, speaking of that, so let's get to the beginning of marriage. How important is premarital counseling? Since both of you have experience with premarital counseling, how important is that?
From my perspective, it's essential. It is essential. So I just recently celebrated my anniversary. My husband and I both agree that we would have done a lot better had we had some knowledge about what marriage is as Muslims, who we ourselves were. It was a growing process over time, and I appreciate the growth process. But I think that a lot of the challenges that we faced as young married people, we could have prevented. We could have prevented some of those things. And so I think that, in my experience, most people spend more time planning for the wedding than they do the marriage. And when they spend more time planning for the wedding than they do the marriage, they don't have the knowledge and skills that they need for that lifelong, because marriage it shouldn't be like a jump in and jump out kind of thing. It should be something that's going to be a lifelong partnership.
Imam Nadim?
No, as the imams, we have to deal with the wreckages, where people would just, as Dr. Aneesah said, people would jump in and jump out of marriage. And I've seen people get married and be pregnant within 3 weeks and then divorced within a month. And so then now you're having to deal with support for the child and the trauma of a person who thought they were going to stay married, having to deal with that. And so you have to look at the word trauma as anything that's less than nurturing. And so, and then you get people who will, because they say it's half our Deen, they will go from marriage to marriage to marriage, men and women, and I tell them to, I tell some of my clients jokingly, I say, look, don't invite me to a nikah for the next year or so. You need to take some time to yourself. You have to grieve. Any loss, there has to be a level of grief. And so, we are human beings before we're Muslim. And so as human beings, we suffer from the same illnesses that all human beings suffer from. And so we have to grieve losses. And as opposed to, because what happens is, instead of taking mates, we take hostages along the way if we don't engage in proper, healthy grief.
Oh, mashallah. So true, Imam Nadir.
Wow.
So true.
Okay. What are, in your experience, what are people's aversion to premarital counseling? What are some of what makes people kind of like, I don't know?
My experience, I think the imams may even have a different experience. Mine is like, if it's not broken, most as a society, we don't come from a preventive perspective. We come from a crisis-oriented perspective, and so we're not a people who, as a society and as a community, even though it's part of our Deen, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, tie your camel and rely on Allah. So that is part of our tradition. But as a people and as a society, we are not prevention oriented. And so we come from a perspective of more, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but we don't come from a perspective of the stitch in time. Let's stitch this up and, get the training and the skills so that, inshallah, we won't need, we won't experience some of the trauma, that Imam Nadim has mentioned.
And then also, you'll hear people say, well, where's that in the hadith? And I tell people all the time, during that period, during the time, a person could say their name, and all of their lineage could be revealed. Oh, you're of this tribe, and this tribe is known as people of good character, or this tribe was known as liars. And so they didn't have, you're talking about a short life expectancy, and we're contemporary people. And so we have well over 100 years of advancement in psychology and therapy. And so, we have to benefit from that. We don't ride camels today, so we shouldn't have a camel rider's mentality in dealing with contemporary society. And that's one of the things that I hear most of all, where's that in the hadith, or that's not the sunnah. I tell them later, and in my community, we do not perform marriages unless they had premarital counseling, at least 6 sessions somewhere, and they don't have to do it with me, but they have to bring proof of premarital counseling. And we find, and they say the aversion is they think that we will try to convince them not to get married. But the point is that there has to be a level of transparency, financial intimacy, conflict resolution, specifically if you have had a history of any type of violence or domestic violence, that we need to talk about that. Have you attained anger management? Have you gotten treatment for that? I also do a personality profile for the people that come and see me. But it doesn't mean that, again, that we don't, based on a personality profile, that you can't get married, but it's teaching you how each other think and how to bring things to each other.
I would also say my experience with many of the imams, Imam Nadim, you are a rare find. There are a few of your brothers like you, but most, unfortunately, are not. And they really strongly believe that they would be part of the problem or cause couples to engage in premarital sex or zina. And so they likewise, they don't encourage, they don't as you do require at least 6 sessions of premarital education and counseling, and because they're afraid that they're going to have to answer, at least this is what they're telling us, that they're going to have to answer for them having the premarital problems, but they don't think very much about the problems that they're going to have during the marriage once they get married that will lead them to divorce. These are some of the things that I have heard and experienced from the imams, and also since the people didn't get the encouragement or the requirement, they don't need to do it.
So that being said, Imam Nadim, since you have a class starting next week, inshallah, can you kind of give us some input, insight? It's next Wednesday, same time, alhamdulillah. Can you give us a little insight as to what you'll be discussing in this class?
Yeah, we're going to be talking, again about, first of all, the importance of premarital counsel, as I mentioned, what you learned about marriage from home, what you learned, and then a lot of, again, many of the young people in this generation, they don't specifically, they don't have parents who are married for the most part. You may have, because we have in the Black community specifically, was it 7 out of every 10 children are born in a single parent household, and so many people don't have the experience of witnessing couplehood, and so we talk about that. What did you learn about relationships from home, and then also we talk about how do you manage conflicts, and we talk about, again, what is intimacy? As men, a lot of times we think that intimacy is just physical sex, and I try to give them a deeper meaning of intimacy. There's one author, he wrote a book, I wrote an article, he said that he broke the word intimacy down to into me see. In other words, you are allowing another person to see into you, and it's vice versa. Again, we, the financial piece, we talk about, how what the style of managing or parenting children, and what are some of the goals, you want to, what are your styles, do you into corporal punishment, or are you into taking away privileges? What are the goals for your children? Do you want all of your children to become doctors, or you want them to just fulfill their own aspirations? So we will, talk about those different things, so those are some of the points we'll cover in the premarital counseling. And we also talk about the issue of polygyny. If a person is going to practice that, we talk about that, and what is the position there, and so so that's a big issue in the Muslim community as well.
True. No, it is. Alhamdulillah. So it sounds like the class is wide in its scope. Alhamdulillah, that you're covering a lot. The first thing you brought up about what people learn from their own childhood is really, really important. Speaking for myself as someone, my parents got divorced, and I live with my father. Unlike most young people, I live with my father. So you would assume, also people assume that if you grow up with your dad, if you're a young, African American male, that you're okay. That as an adult, I realized, like, wait a minute, I have gaps. I had to get counseling going. I have gaps about, I had gaps about family life, and I've been married over 20 years now. Alhamdulillah, and I was able to get some good counseling. Had, a lot of wise people around me. Dr. Aneesah, so in January, inshallah, through Manna, your class will be starting on the Manna LMS before the Nikah. So can you give us a little bit of background as to what your class entails?
Yes, alhamdulillah. So this is a course that I've been teaching now for about 20 years. It's a course that I developed, and it is a course that actually started off, alhamdulillah, with the 6 sessions, 6 sessions, for one semester, if you will, and 6 sessions for another. And some people just took the 6, and then alhamdulillah, Then a few started taking the 12, and now we have a 12 session course. It's a course that starts off with kind of helping people to understand what marriage is in Islam, helping them to understand who they are. Because, you know, I agree with Imam Nadim, you have to understand your own self, your own, how you grew up, what your personality is, your weaknesses, what your challenges, what your triggers are, you know, so those things are going to be important. So within the course, we also talk about communication skills. We have a section in the course where we talk about fair fighting and preventing domestic violence and conflict resolution and communication skills. We have a section talking about the legalities of marriage. You know, most people don't realize that when you get married, you trigger legal issues or you trigger legal responsibilities. And there may be some legal things that you got going on that may not make you suitable for marriage just yet, or with that particular person. We also have a proprietary vetting process that we share with our students, so that, because one of the things I've come to realize is that most people don't choose wisely. They don't know themselves and they don't choose wisely. And so we work to help people learn how to choose wisely. So we have a vetting process. People would say, well, even if that was the case, I do want to choose, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what to look for, you know. So we've taken some time to put together the before the nikah vetting process, so that people can, you know, have a sense of what steps they need to take. And we believe strongly in having a marriage support team. You know, the saying is, you know, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, we believe it takes a village to support a healthy marriage. And so, you know, having the MST, or the marriage support team, is part of that. So we'll talk about that. Then we go on to talk about things like intimacy and health and wellness, mental health and wellness, as well as parenting skills, financial intimacy, and financial when you know, some of the different financial issues that people face, which finances and communication are two of the top problems that lead to divorce and marriage. So, and then we also have a session on cross-cultural marriage. Because and in-laws, cross-cultural marriage and in-laws, and how, you know, what are some of the issues or challenges that you might face as you get married with even your in-laws, or things that you should just be thinking about. And then a lot of folks are marrying cross-cultural in the African American community. We're marrying, you know, people who are from Africa or from other countries, as well. And sometimes there are cross-cultural issues that we need to kind of we need to prepare for before we get married. So this course is really geared towards single people before they get married, newlyweds in the beginning of the marriage, people who've been divorced and coming back again. So, and we do have some married people who take it because they need a jump start or a recharge or
reboot.
A reboot.
A reboot, yeah. They allow reboot.
Start freezing sometimes.
Dr. Nadir, so I kind of wanted to just go into your book, since we know your book is coming out on the 25th, mashallah. So we'll be able to read it all times of the day when we're not in class. Mashallah, can you tell us a little bit about the book?
So the book is called Before the Nikah: Proven Principles to Help Single Muslims Choose Wisely and Build Strong Marriages. The book is based on the 20 years of working with students and having students as part of the Before the Nikah marriage preparation course. So mashallah, Allah blessed me over this past year to actually put down on paper some of the things that I've been teaching. And my hope is that this will serve, one, as a companion for the course, companion book for the course, but also a self-study guide for those who, for various reasons, won't be able to get to the course. So inshallah, we're looking forward to it. And it includes 13 of the principles that we think are really very important. One of them is informed consent. You know, that's a very strong principle for before the nikah, the importance of, you may choose to marry somebody, but you ought to know who you're marrying. So I think it's really important for people to be informed. So, and also we talk about how you really get to know each other, that big capital KNOW, not the little one. So those are just some of the aspects that we talk about within the book that we also cover within the course. And yes, it does. We launch on the 25th of September, and we invite everyone to join us for the online launch event. And that's also the day that the book will be available for purchase.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. I wanted to talk about, there's a lot of emphasis on premarital counseling, but as someone who's been married over 20 years, and you all, Imam Nadim was telling me, mashallah, he's looking forward to the birth of his 5th grandchild. So, mashallah, you need, as you were talking about reboots or tune-ups, when you're in the marriage, you need counseling because you just go through these patches that, you just can't, you're in a rut sometimes. Can you speak on that a little bit?
I think, I call it the seasons of a marriage. You can have the newness of the spring, the intensity of the summer, and the reaping of the fall, and the challenges of winter. And so if you don't dress properly, for each season, then you're going to fail. And so, so every marriage is going to have all of those things. You're going to fall. You can love each other all the time. I remember, my wife will have, and I hope she don't mind me sharing this, having a conversation, about love. And then I told her, well, baby, I'm committed to you. And she said, what am I, an institution? If you know my wife, she's a jokester, But and then a few months later, she came back to me and said, I understand what you meant. Because she met with sisters and talked with sisters and who were in various stages in their marriages. And she said, I understand, what you meant about being committed, because that's deep, because you see people who are in jail for domestic violence and say, well, why did you hit him or her? Oh, because I loved him, and as they say, love should not have to hurt, because they have a distorted concept of love. Yeah. And so I place a commitment. That's why I talk about my 4 legs of love: friendship, intimacy, commitment, and trust. You have to have all of those in order to say you really love somebody. And so that commitment is just like when you're getting older, do you get rid of your wife or your husband when they start to have memory problems? When they're starting to have illnesses, so that commitment. I've seen very old couples in their 80s and 90s sometimes, and you see that commitment, the love that they have for each other, that there's a level of commitment. Is they're no longer the 20-somethings, and so that newness of the spring is there. And but once you grow into a marriage, you're raising children now. Again, we're raising grandchildren, so there's a whole level of existence that's so different from the time when you first got married. And so it's important for couples to grow together. You hear people say, well, I outgrew them. I outgrew them. And so you want to stay, you don't want to get so busy that you outgrow each other. You can, I call it interdependence. You have some couples are just independent. Right. Just everybody does their own thing. And some couples are codependent. But interdependence is 2 overlapping circles. You have a life, your mate has a life, and you have a life together. And so healthy couples are interdependent, making sure that you have that healthy life and they have a healthy life, but you also have a life together that you continue to nurture.
MashaAllah. That leads us to a question Nadir Rashid has. Salam, what advice and suggestions can you offer for senior couples who face various issues such as the results of aging and health problems, such as intimacy, hygiene, communication, household chores, and etc.? And I know you just spoke on some of that, but for both of you, if you could chime in on this question, inshallah.
Go ahead, Imam Nadim.
I was thinking, especially with the chores, I'll deal with that. I remember my girls, I have 4 girls and 1 boy, and they used to say, why don't we can't we get a dishwasher? I used to tell them I have 5 dishwashers. And so now all my children are grown. I can't bring a dishwasher in the house. So my wife, she cooks, I clean the kitchen. You know, so we have that deal. You know, in the old days, I'm the king at that point, but but all the kids are grown and gone, and so we have to basically change our roles. You know, and if I want to eat, that kitchen gonna be clean. So that's the whole point, is that we have to grow together. And the whole thing, intimacy, again, as I mentioned earlier, it can be different from when you're in your 20s as opposed to when you're in your 40s and 50s. It might not be so much sexual fulfillment, but just spending time together, that quality time. You're familiar with the whole concept of the 5 love languages: quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, and so those are some of the things that we have to look at, using that as a model. What is your love language? And to speak your mate's love language.
One of the things I found is that our love languages change also over time. I remember as a younger person, my love language was quality time. And I was like, really big deal. My husband worked 2 jobs, and so we didn't get to spend that much time together. And recently he gave me, this is our anniversary season. So he gave me this beautiful card, and in it, he said, the card basically said how proud he was of me and all the things. And that's definitely words of affirmation. Boy, it just warmed my heart. And he's like that. He's very supportive and very caring. And so that makes a huge difference. But I didn't realize how much sometimes our love language may change from that spring season to to later in life. And also, I'm sorry, empty nest. The empty nest is it's different when you get older, and now your children are now adults. Some of them may be adults at home with you. Some of them may be adults who have left the home, and you may be there without them. But it's a different ball game, and so I would encourage one kind of an enrichment kind of retreat. You get out and do, now that they're gone or they're not little kids anymore, you now can maybe go travel together, have dates together. Again, he surprised me. It was our anniversary. He took us to the Omni Hotel. I mean, it was, and rose petals. I mean, the whole 9 yards. This was cool. But that's, those are things that we can do as we get older.
Yeah.
But you gotta want to also, and you've got to use your communication skills and your relationship building skills. But they change as time progresses.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because I'm familiar with the love languages, but I didn't know that they could change over time, and it makes a lot of sense because your needs change over time. So we have a question by Rashid Shabazz. Salams, how do we recognize which season a marriage is in and dress appropriately?
Nice, good question. I remember as a couple I introduced many years ago. I think they've been married over 10 years now. And when I see the brother every now and then, I said, "Is the honeymoon still on?" I said, "The honeymoon's still on." And I believe that the honeymoon should never end. When you're existing like roommates, then you're talking about a winter, in marriage. But if you are, if you're able to communicate, in a healthy fashion, and the spontaneity. I always tell people, if you touch that doorknob, and what is the feeling do you get? Do you get a sense of relief or a sense of stress and dread? It will tell you what season you're in just by touching that doorknob.
Whether you want to come home or not.
Yeah, that's the gauge, the barometer.
Oh, and you know what? One of the biggest indicators has been COVID, because we've had to be home in times in this last year and a half more than we've ever had to be home. with our spouse, and that was a big test and a big indicator of whether or not what season we're in, you know, because the domestic violence rate went up and the divorce rate went up during the period, this year and a half, and so that's a huge indicator as to what season we're in. So whether or not we want to even stay there or be there, or we don't have any outlets. We couldn't go to the gym, we couldn't go to the park, we couldn't even really go to the masjid, you know. So and to quote unquote get away or have a different place to be. Yeah, absolutely.
I tell people all the time, I said COVID has made some relationships stronger and some relationships no longer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I see Imam Nadim. I see the poet.
Yeah, that's a spoken word artist right there.
I see the spoken word coming through. MashaAllah. If I was to ask you about, since we spoke about COVID and its effect on relationships, do you think that we'll have kind of a renaissance when it comes to young people? Because we went through a time period when I would speak to, you know, a lot of young people would say like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to get married. But COVID, I'm noticing, you know, an uptick in marriages or an uptick in just the interest of relationships. What have you seen the same, and what do you attribute that to?
I feel a little bit concerned about people who got married during COVID, because COVID's not real. I mean, like, that's not the reality of like pre-COVID or non-COVID times. Like, we're out, we're doing things, and then you can assess whether or not you want to be with somebody who has these particular habits and things that they do on a regular basis. COVID is an anomaly. And so there may have been there's an uptick, there's also a downtick. So the question is, how long are you going to stay together? You know, is this a reality that you can really live with and hold with? That's my husband's phrase. You know, can you hold with it? You know, really? And do you have enough information in this time frame and in this period to really hold with? And even to know the person that you're with. Is that the person that they normally would be if it wasn't COVID? Or are they someone else right now because of COVID?
Or do you become dependent, you know, like Imam Nadim is saying about being codependent?
Yeah.
Imam Nadim, what do you think?
And I think when the restrictions are lifted and we have our distractions back, what you got used to during the COVID marriage will now shift. You know, now I'm going to be out and I'm going to be doing this and I'm running, you know, all of that. And so as Dr. Aneesah says, that this is an anomaly. And so so we have to be able to, you know, just gauge, can we maintain that couplehood when the restrictions of COVID lifts? And that's important.
So we have a question. We have a couple of questions here from Life is Sad, Mad, and Bad. Can you explain a little bit why marriage is so important and how it's part of Deen?
Alhamdulillah. You know, I reflect on the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that marriage is like a fort. And so when we look at a fort, you know, it's a protection. You know, it's a protection from all of the elements and the temptations of this society. And so it protects you, you know, from, you know, engaging in behaviors that are inconsistent with Islam. And so if we look at it from that perspective, it's a fort, you know, but just like any strong fort, you have to be able to build it out of the proper materials. In other words, you need to, you know, get to the point where you're prepared for marriage. As the Prophet ﷺ said that those who can't marry, so he recognized some people aren't ready for marriage. He said they should fast. You know, if you don't have a key to your own place, if you don't, you know, if you're not paying bills, you're not able to provide for yourself and are you ready to take on another person? Because again, for men, our responsibility is to protect and maintain. We're supposed to maintain, even though we live in a two-income society. But as the Prophet ﷺ said, it is half of our deen. And as we talk, we'll be talking about the class, and as we're talking about tonight, we have to work on that other half. You know, we have to basically become the best people we can possibly be. I had a friend who we were also co-therapists, and we had people who were just coming out of the crack house, and they would talk about, I want to get married, and I want to have a family, and this and that, and he would look at him and say, would you marry you? You know, and so I borrowed that from him, and asked people I asked, okay, if everything that you know about yourself, would you marry yourself? And when you say yes, then you're ready to get married, because you know all about yourself. Right. Other people don't know you. They don't. They just see the shell. They don't see what's inside. And so and the people would 9 times out of 10 say no. Would you marry you? They think, nah, I wouldn't marry me.
Wow, that's a very interesting question.
That's a very important question to ask.
Very, very important. Yeah. So it is. Dr. Aneesah?
Can you share with me that question again?
It says, can you explain a little bit that why is marriage so important and how is it part of Deen?
So marriage is part of the way of the Prophet, peace be upon him. For those who, as Imam Nadim said, are ready for it and prepared for it. Marriage is not for everyone. And there's a couple of things. One is marriage is a way to help us help each other get to Jannah. You know, that's as Muslims, that's our primary goal, is to, work towards developing ourselves so that we can serve Allah in this life and get to Jannah in the next life. So marrying brings two people together who should be helping each other do that, as garments for each other, as in this fort, etc. But for those people who either are not ready, able, it's not their season to be married, it's important for them also to be happily single and to live a purposeful life in their deen, right? So that they can get to heaven. Not everybody's going to. We have a lot of single people. We have a lot of single sisters, a lot of single people, single for different reasons. And so they may not get married, but that doesn't mean they're any less of a person and they're any less of a Muslim. There is a concern for those who have the ability, have the means, have the temperament, but they don't get married. That's another issue. I'm not really speaking about those folks right now. I'm speaking about the ones who, for whatever reason, aren't getting married, would like to be married, but this isn't their season. But they should still be purposeful. There's so much in life, and so many talents that Allah has given them, and so much so many ways that they can use those talents. Even as a single person, but a member of a family, a member of a community, and there's so I think marriage is important in terms of helping us get to heaven. But if this isn't your season to be married, then we should still use the talents and gifts that Allah has blessed us with to be the best person, human being, Muslim that we can be.
Because there was Sahaba that didn't marry, and so what we have to look at is that there are many ways to get to Jannah as well. So as Dr. Aneesah say, be the best Muslim that you can be. But you don't just want to rule out marriage. They were some of them were so busy preserving the religion for us, that they didn't get married, and so if you don't get married, you don't just want to discount marriage and say, well, it's something that's not for me. But you still want to, even if, like say, marrying yourself and taking care of the responsibilities and giving charity. And so there are other ways of getting to Jannah as well.
Alhamdulillah, I appreciate that, because the second part of the question was, can you tell me if I don't marry, does that mean I'm not in the circle of Islam anymore? And Dr. Aneesah, I really appreciate you addressing that sometimes people do feel like if they don't get married, they feel like, they're kind of out of the communal aspect of being Muslim.
May I say that it is hard to be a single Muslim. It is really difficult to be a single Muslim. But at the same time, so therefore, I guess it's important then to develop good relationships with other single Muslims, and also find your niche, find the things, whether it's, your degree, and, and do it fi sabilillah, for the intention of serving Allah, and so, but it's not easy, because we're a marrying community,
Right.
For better or for worse. We are a marrying community, and so it's hard to be a single Muslim, but we can do it, but it means that we need to develop good relationships and have good sister relationships or good brother relationships.
Yes.
That build us up in this Deen.
And I would also add, when you're single, we should prepare. We're preparing to get married and being our best selves and bringing our best selves into marriage. And part of that is taking classes like Imam Nadim's class coming up next week, and like, Dr. Aneesah's class coming up in January, about how to get prepared to be married, so that you don't want to just get on stage. You have to practice, you have to learn, you have to be prepared first. You want to just get thrown out there like, okay, game time. And you have a deer in the headlights look. And alhamdulillah, that's why we're here, so that we can prepare people a lot better, so we can have better outcomes, not just for individuals, but as a community. Because, like Dr. Aneesah said, we're a community of marriage. And we want good outcomes. So that part of what MANA is focusing on is intergenerational Islam. You can't have intergenerational Islam if you don't have good families or good marriages.
And I think it's important for those of us who are married. I'll be coming up on 42 years of marriage next week, inshallah. And inshallah. I remember I lived in Saudi Arabia, and I had my family couldn't come over for 6 months, and it was like, wow, this is the first time I've been, single man, and so. And if you've been to Saudi Arabia, that's they believe in marriage over there, and so it was just like you just couldn't have anything to do as a single man. Once I got married, once I got my wife over there, then I'm getting invitations and you go to dinner and all of that, and one of their wives to meet my wife, and so I had a taste of what it was like to be single for that period. And I remember visiting Turkey. We were in Turkey for 10 days. And one of the things that one of the brothers noticed, every street that we drove down, we would see bridal shops. And he said, why are there so many bridal shops? And I said, because these Muslims get married, whereas we live in a society where we're free to do anything, and so you don't have to get married in the West for the most part. You can live together for 10, 20 years and then move on. Or decide to get married. And so, the whole concept of marriage in Islam, and you visit Islamic societies, again, as was stated earlier, for better or for worse, people get married. But, the goal is to have quality in your marriage and not just have quantity. You don't want to be, and I'll ask couples sometimes, I say, when did the honeymoon end? They may be married 20 years and may have had only 5 years of a healthy marriage. And I would ask them, when did the honeymoon end? And they would give me this happened and that happened. I lost this child, or something happened, and it just stayed together in almost like a roommate existence.
We're really blessed. As I'm listening, as someone, I didn't have an opportunity to do premarital counseling, but as I'm listening to you all, just the wisdom that you all are giving people in terms of the different phases of your marriage before you get married, and I wanted to touch on a question that Brother Ayub Abdul Shakur asks, where he says, Assalamu alaikum, at what point during the good season of marriage would you recommend doing counseling to attempt to combat the down season?
Hmm.
Good question.
I would say I think that anybody who gets married, they almost ought to have a counselor on retainer, like somebody that they know, like a booster shot or a regular checkup or a regular. I mean, because we're gonna have disagreements. We're gonna have times when we're not feeling ourselves, but we can't express it to our spouse. We may need help with that. We may have disagreements that we're going to have disagreements that come up. Absolutely, no doubt about that. But maybe it's also about, how do we foster that loving feeling again? So that we may need to be in a counseling, not a counseling. It doesn't have to be counseling always for problems. It could be counseling for helping us to blossom, to bring it to the next level, So, yeah.
Yeah. And also, when you're noticing that there is a reduction in positives, and who's this Gottman? Dr. Gottman, he's one of the scholars in marital therapy. He talks about, he gives the 5-to-1 ratio. He says that when you have 5 positive experiences versus 1 negative experience, then the marriage lasts. If you have reversed it, 5 negative experiences to 1 positive experience, the marriage doesn't last. And he also says the interesting thing, he says it takes 5 positive experiences to erase every 1 negative experience. So if you have 50 negative experiences, it takes 250 positive experiences to erase those 50 negative experiences. And I always I like to like I say, I'm a spoken word artist and I write some music and songs. But what's the song? Midi Collier. I had a talk with my man last night. And one of the lines in there said, I had a talk with my man last night. He assured me everything was all right. And he just wanted me to know I was still the star of his show. I had a talk with my man last night. That's an old school song. But I'm saying the thing is that couples should check in with each other. Taking, just like if you have a business and if you selling bananas and you don't take inventory, you're going to try to sell bananas and lift them up. They're going to be rotten.
You got to inspect what you expect. That's right.
You got it.
That's right.
Inspect what you expect.
That's right.
That's right.
That's all up. Okay, so we have, so there's 2 comments, and then I wanted to just kind of close out with talking about how people register and things of that nature. So Habiba West, she says, sisters are preparing. We attend workshops, lectures, classes, etc. But where are the brothers? Nowhere to be found. They engage in haram relationships and then get married. No one condemns it. If I may, before you all address this, one thing I think, on the communal level, part of what we're trying to do at Manna is we're not cursing the darkness, but we're shining light. We want to shine like prophetic light on some of our issues. And part of the reason why we're here talking about you all while we're offering, classes on marriage is because we do have that kind of negative view towards getting married or being married. It's kind of pervasive now with people, and depending on who you're around. And that's why we want to be around people, Imam Nadim, you've been married, you're coming up on 42 years. Dr. Aneesah, you've been married over 20. I'm sorry, we didn't get the
42 years. My husband and I first married 42 years ago.
MashaAllah, 42 years. So both of you are coming on 40.
Almost 100 years up in here.
So which real good. So and that's that. We want to shine light on that by not saying that there aren't issues. Like our sisters pointed out, there are issues, but we want to get prepared as well, and have high hopes. Inshallah. How would you handle this feeling that sisters have, and even brothers have this feeling? I've heard brothers express this feeling of like, maybe I'm not gonna get married, or nobody out there, there's no one out there, or this that. Because I'm sure you all run across it as community leaders. How do you address that?
So what I see this sister saying is that the sisters are going to preparation, but the brothers aren't, and the brothers are out. and I know that's not true of all brothers,
Right.
but I think that there is an imbalance where most of the workshops that I even hold in the sessions that the sisters are there, you know, but it's hard to get the brothers there. So one thing is that I think as a community and I'm going to say that our brothers who are the leaders in the community need to emphasize this more as men to men. I think it's going to be important as men to men. You need to say, I think that the fathers of the girls need to make a requirement that, I'm sorry, brother, you're going to have to get some education before you come up in here talking to my daughter. And the sisters are going to have to respect their fathers' wishes and go along with that, because you're right. If you got all this education and he has none, that's an imbalance. Right. So I do believe that that's going to be an important thing. And then I think as parents, when we're raising sons and daughters, we need to give the same message. You know, it's not, no, you can't go out and hang out with Susie and whoever else and the daughter is home. That's not right. That's not Islam. And so we need to give the same message to the men, to our young men and to our young women. And I think we also need to start our young men off with their mahar account so that they start putting money aside in preparation for marriage. Because when they spend their money, they take things more seriously. So the dad is more, he's stronger and he's like adamant. No, you know, this is a requirement in our household. You know, before you marry one of my daughters, but also they're starting to put their own money aside, and they're thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to spend this money. I'm gonna have to be a certain way, and I'm gonna have to be mindful of what I'm looking for also in a spouse. So.
Alhamdulillah.
And the Prophet also, you know, he said, you know, we marry for so many things, but he emphasized Deen. And so if a person is engaging in behaviors that's inconsistent with Islam, he's lacking Iman. You know, he's lacking Iman. And so the main thing is for, you know, Iman is dynamic. And so, and also sisters need to listen to their wakils and wali. You know, I've, you know, been the wali and wakils for sisters, and I would meet a brother and I would say, not him. And they marry him anyway. You know, that's, you know, I'm out of here like last year, you know. and so that's the whole thing is to, you know, when like, because everybody's meeting online and you know, Facebook couples, Muslims who want to be married, Muslims who have been married, you know, they all kinds of groups. And so because we have this virtual world, you know, we need to basically do investigations. And when I get requests from sisters to, based on some brother that they met online, I will ask the brother, give me, you know, 3 references, and one of them have to be an imam. Give me a bio. Have you been incarcerated and this and that? And, you know, I see, you know, see the pictures, and I see, because I was a chaplain for 14 years in the federal prison, and I'll see the picture, brother in jail. You know, you see the bricks making a nice jailhouse pose, and he's cute and all of that, and sisters end up marrying him, and without consulting their wakils or walis, and that needs to be, we need to value that, and then you're going to find, and also not be afraid, as Dr. Aneesah mentioned earlier, about cross-cultural marriages. Even in my family, I have, you know, a brother who's, you know, who's not African-American, married with my youngest daughter, you know, and so, and that's the thing is that you would say there's a shortage of men, but there's a lot of men in the Muslim community. We don't have to all marry African-Americans.
Imam Nadim, I was about to say, Imam Nadim, you gonna end the program on, I mean, we're gonna end on that note, Imam Nadim.
Muslim, we spoke Muslim. The Prophet, he married all over the globe.
No, that's true. I mean, no, that's true. But that's just mashallah. So tune in if you want to hear more of Imam Nadim's discussion about cross-cultural marriages. Register for the class next Wednesday, same time. Mashallah, you'll get, you know, you'll have all access to Imam Nadim. It's the class is you can ask questions. You know, it's a more intimate setting. Mashallah. We really appreciate it. And I would just like for you all in closing to just tell us, you know, what can people expect in attending, you know, the courses, inshallah.
I will pray, okay? No problem.
Imam Nadim, shall I go ahead?
Go ahead.
So in attending my course, as I mentioned earlier, it's a 12-week session. It's a session that includes discussion. There is homework because I expect you to put some of this, what we learn, into action at home. And then, as I mentioned, there are going to be different topics that we're going to be discussing. And then also you're going to have actually 2 books. You're going to have 2 books that will be companion books to the course. So I look forward to seeing you all in January. For those of you who are not registered for my fall course, I look forward to seeing you for the spring MANA course in January.
And then what I'll be doing is covering or expanding on the portions that I cover when I sit down with couples who engage in the premarital counseling, the 6 sessions. And again, we covered some of the issues, again, like conflict management, communication skills, financial responsibilities, child and parenting responsibilities, and also extended family roles. And then also for some states, if you complete all 6 sessions, I'll issue a certificate. And I know in Georgia, if you get a marriage license, you basically get a significant discount if you present this certificate. So for those who would need that, I will present them a certificate that they've completed the course. Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. So again, I want to kind of encourage people to become members of MANA, because in the future you'll be able to get a discount on these courses. Inshallah, if you go to the MANA website and you just apply, membership is free currently, and the membership comes with discounted classes and other things, inshallah. So want to appreciate, thank Dr. Aneesah and Imam Nadim for coming on, and inshallah, if you, please go to the MANA websites. You can register for the class next Wednesday with Imam Nadim, and inshallah Sister Aneesah's will be in January. So next Wednesday, 9 o'clock, you can ask Imam Nadim all about this cross-cultural conversation that he ended the program on. And no, inshallah, and I would encourage people to attend if you're at whatever season of marriage you're in. If you're pre, or if you're in the season where you're in the spring or the fall, or in the winter time, inshallah. And I appreciate those illustrations of Imam Nadim, alhamdulillah. And Dr. Aneesah, alhamdulillah, thank you all. And inshallah, we'll look forward to the class next week, and look forward to Dr. Aneesah's class in January. Everybody pick the book up before the nikah, so we can have healthy, fulfilling marriages in the community. We can have a strong community, inshallah. So everybody have a good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.
And I'm also at nadimali.com if you want to send me any questions as well. nadimali.com.
And draneesah.com.
Ooh, alhamdulillah.